Um, Welcome to the next video on freedom and necessity. So freedom and necessity go together for Descartes, which can seem a little strange, maybe, right? So that seems like a problem. I mean, think of it this way, right? So freedom and necessity go together. Freedom is only being able to go one way, right? It's when you're fully free when you see I am, I exist, and cannot but affirm it to be true. And so freedom is only being able to go one way. It's only being able to judge I am, I exist, or 2 + 2 = 4, or the square has equal sides, right? And you might think, well, if freedom is really only being able to go one way, then how is it freedom? How is it making a choice? That seems like a problem, right? If you can only go one way, then it doesn't seem like you're free. You can't actually choose. So aren't these opposites? Isn't freedom opposed to only being able to go one way? I mean, let's take an example. So suppose you're taking a math test and you get the right answer. You see how to do it, right? You have insight. Boom, it's there, right? You got it. Ah, 2 + 10 is 12. I don't know. That's kind of simple, but there you go. Boom. What's 2 + 10? Oh, it's 12. I see. All right. So you see this in your mind. You see that 2 + 10 = 12. But instead of writing down 12, you say, hey, I'm free. I'm going to fight this. I have a choice. I don't have to write 12. I'm going to write 14. Are you acting freely? Am I acting freely when I write 14, even though I see that the right answer is 12? Fighting the necessity? No, right? No. If you think that writing 14 is acting freely, you've misunderstood what freedom is. Why? I mean, take a second. Pause the video. Think about it. Why am I not acting free? Why have I misunderstood what freedom is if I write 14, even though I see that the right answer is 12? Why is this a confusion about the nature of freedom? Why do I not understand what freedom is? Well, when you write down the right answer, 12, you're not acting unfreely. Rather, you're reaching your highest state of your own self-determination. You yourself are seeing what's true clearly and distinctly, and affirming that it is true, right? You yourself are taking up a position on the matter and knowing that 2 + 10 = 12. And in this, you're following God's lead. Because God only has clear and distinct perceptions. Every idea that God has is clear and distinct. God only has clear and distinct perceptions. But in this case, it's you who's seeing things are right. It's you who's seeing that 2 and 10 make 12. And so in this way, it's you, in this case, who are responsible for judging 12. It's you who's responsible for this good judgment, this bit of knowledge, this true belief. And so I've only gone wrong when I affirm something which I do not clearly and distinctly understand, something which cannot be so. So as Descartes says at 62:17, right? So he's commenting on why all clear and distinct ideas come from God. He says every clear and distinct perception is undoubtedly something, and hence not from nothing, but must necessarily have God as its author. Why is this? Why is this? Well, clear and distinct ideas are undeniable. They must be affirmed. The will can't help but judge them to be so. This is the case in which the will and the intellect cooperate properly, right? When they reach their highest state, when they're spontaneous, when you reach perfection. If when seeing something clearly and distinctly, that thing was nonetheless part not real, then because we must affirm everything we can see clearly and distinctly, we would be forced to judge falsely. We would be forced to judge falsely. And so then God would be a deceiver. Right? So when I perceive clearly and distinctly, my will and my intellect cooperate properly, and I'm forced to judge. But if that thing that I were judging were false, then I would be forced to be judging falsely, and God would be a deceiver, right? My nature would be such as to make me go wrong. I would be forced into an error if something that I was clearly and distinctly perceiving was nonetheless in part not real. But this is impossible. This is impossible. Why? Well, since God made us with these faculties, our intellect and our will, and in this case, in our supposed case, we would be forced to judge falsely by these very faculties, right? Our faculties of intellect and will would force us to be deceived, then God would be a deceiver. But this is impossible by meditation 3. Right? God cannot be a deceiver. We've seen that already in meditation 3. So what we affirm in our ideas when we clearly and distinctly perceive them must be real. And since God is the author of everything that's real, he is their author. And so God must be the author of all reality. And it's those things that we perceive when we clearly and distinctly perceive, and those things that we cannot but judge to be the case when we judge spontaneously or when we judge in accord with our clear and distinct ideas. And so finally, as one last note, right, I mean, the reason that the person who writes 14 has misunderstood what freedom is they're fighting their own nature. They're fighting their own nature. Right? They're acting as though their nature is not to be a knower, an apprentice in knowing, is not to try to be like the perfect knower, God. Right? They're acting as though that's not what they are. Their nature is not at one with itself. Right? But of course, it's more, you're more free if your nature is at one with itself. And so the person who writes 14, even though they see that it's 12, is confused about the nature of freedom, about what would make them more free, about what would make their nature more at one with itself. And so that's why they've misunderstood what freedom is. Right? So in the next video, this was the last video on the third meditation or fourth meditation. We'll be turning to the fifth meditation in the